One, Joe Biden has lost Hollywood. He's lost George Clooney. Joe Biden is losing Democrats. And according to Axios, a quote from The Hill, I told my comms team, have a statement ready to go next time he has a big F up. Because you know there's going to be another one. And there'll be another Democrat distancing themselves from Joe Biden. Is today the final day for Joe Biden? 2, the 25th Amendment, and is it time then, in turn, to turn to Kamala Harris with Texas Congressman Chip Roy. 3, your comments, the militia, asking me, yeah, Will, but what are your bottom 5 flags? It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com and on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Terrestrial radio, market to market, across the country. Just hit subscribe on Apple or Spotify. If you're watching us, hit subscribe on YouTube and coming out here every day on the Will Cain Show. Become a part of our community. Drop a comment into the section and make your way onto the Will Cain Show. Like on Twitter. JH said the following regarding yesterday's episode of The Will Cain Show. I am flabbergasted that men actually get paid for this rambling debate about Trump, Biden, et al. Very fancy use of et al, JH. Trump, Biden, et al. Golf contest. Jeez, I like the podcast usually, but please. JH has no tolerance in the time of the threats to our democracy to consider whether or not Brett Baier would beat Donald Trump in a round of 18. But there are others who are digging, hanging out with the militia, like the following. This is Carmen Thompson. She said, I laughed so hard. I'm going to have to go watch this on YouTube. I listened to Will Cain Show on Amazon Music, and Will doing a red carpet description of George Stephanopoulos' running attire was hilarious. The golf segment had me rolling. Yes. Well, Carmen, head on over to YouTube, and you can not only listen, you can watch us here on The Will Cain Show. We've got a big show today, including Texas Congressman Chip Roy, who has introduced the idea that it is time to invoke the 25th Amendment. But are we as a country ready? Are Democrats ready to admit that they should be fighting for President Kamala Harris? All that coming up in just a moment here on The Will Cain Show. But first, story number 1. Nate Silver, founder of 538, said the race for president in 2024 will be defined by one singular issue, and that is Joe Biden's senility. That might seem obvious to you, but it's a departure from the last decade of not just presidential, but political elections in the U.S. Pretty much every election since 2016 has been a referendum on Donald Trump. What I mean by that is people, and you can consider this in your private life, you know, who you walk around with, who you hang out with at the barbecue, they pretty much, in the end, vote according to their feelings on Donald Trump. I mean, this is made clear to us in that they're a great many of them willing to vote for a weekend at Bernie's version of Joe Biden just because his opponent is Donald Trump. It's captured our politics. It's captured our celebrity culture. It's captured our pop culture. It's captured our mind. There's not even a late night television show anymore that does late night comedy. They all, from Colbert to Stewart, from Oliver to Fallon, now focus on Donald Trump. And why wouldn't you? Because he is, of course, as you have become well aware, a threat to our democracy. But if Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump, well, I guess he's a threat to the democracy. Joe Biden. It's according to CNN today. The ground is shifting under the president. All day Wednesday, lawmakers sent signals. Democratic Representative Richie Torres, a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, who has backed Biden, told CNN, if we're going on a political suicide mission, then we should at least be honest about it. New York, Democrat Pat Ryan called on Biden to live up to his vow to be a bridge to new generation of leaders. Trump is an existential threat to our American democracy. It is our duty to put forward the strongest candidate against him. Joe Biden is a patriot, but he is no longer the best candidate to defeat Trump. Add to this Vermont Senator Peter Welch, who said he saved us from Donald Trump once and he wants to do it again, but he needs to reassess whether or not he is the best candidate to do so. In my view, he is not. Day by day, Joe Biden is losing, Democrat by Democrat. He's scheduled to give a press conference later today. NATO, where there's a lot on the line. In fact, Axios is reporting that it could all be on the line today or any day. Look at this headline or this note from Axios. Lawmakers tell Axios to expect more where that came from. I told my comms team, this is a quote, have our statement ready to go the next time he has a big F up because you know there's going to be another one, said one House Democrat. Told my comms team to have our statement ready to back away from Joe Biden, like the gaining chorus who's now being led by Hollywood, the chorus whose lead singer has taken the form of George Clooney, who has asked him to step aside. Joe Biden. George Clooney, noted Hollywood celebrity, noted friend of Barack Obama. George Clooney wrote an op-ed in the New York Times saying, it's time for you to go, Joe. Founder of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, responded in this way.
If you have actually paid even a tiny bit of attention to Joe Biden over the last year, 2 years, you know that he's gone. And it happens when you get old, but you don't walk onto a stage and not be able to find your way off of it. You don't fall off your bike. You don't say you had lunch with somebody who's been dead for 5 years or whatever. It's one after another after another. So I couldn't believe they let him do the debate. If all these people, Clooney, Chuck, whoever, everybody knew that this man is basically a vegetable, why would you ever let him do that debate unless you want to show the world that he's gone and get rid of him?
Portnoy went to his social media and said, such a hero you are, George Clooney. Saving democracy, this time from Joe Biden. When 3 weeks ago you gave a fundraiser, you led a fundraiser in Hollywood that raised $51 million for Joe Biden. What a hero, said Dave Portnoy. Now, the Biden campaign is going to do their best to save themselves from these Democrats, to save themselves from George Clooney. And they ran their team out there on CNN to do their best. Watch.
In response to those comments from George Clooney, Jake, a campaign official who attended that Los Angeles fundraiser tells me that George Clooney left 3 hours before the president. So clearly the gloves are off. Jake.
But what does that mean that George Clooney left 3 hours? What's the point?
The point of that is to suggest that Biden's stamina is better than Clooney's, and Clooney didn't have, eyes on the entire event. That's the response to the Clooney op-ed.
Okay, said Jake Tapper of CNN. The response from the Biden campaign is he's got more stamina than George Clooney. And look, to be honest, in their defense, they need a break. They're going to have to find some other way to respond. They're going to have to find some other way to motivate their base than painting this dystopian, hellacious landscape that is the future of American democracy under Donald Trump. I mean, this is what they are absolutely running with. I happen to think it's a bit of the flavor of the month. They're going to try this for a bit. I mean, it's in the same vein of Russia hacking into our elections. But right now, they're focused almost exclusively on Project 25. Project 2025, the outline of an agenda authored by Heritage Foundation and I believe 130 other conservative institutions about the best way for not just personnel but policy to be implemented under a new second administration of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said, I don't really know what you're talking about much of when it comes to Project 2025. Ben Shapiro, testifying before Congress and answering questions to Congressman Eric Swalwell, had a perfect response. He said, it seems to be that every Democrat, like in the spirit of Tinkerbell, thinks if they say Project 2025 often enough, their candidate comes back alive. Just keep saying Project 2025 and we will reanimate Joe Biden. I saw Joy Behar, who is Joy Reid, somewhat indistinguishable, who's somehow become somewhat mainstream because our mainstream Overton window has moved to accepting MSNBC saying, Project 2025, it will take away your birth control. It will take away your education. It will take away your equality in girls' sports. It'll take away college, and it will turn you into cannon fodder. This is what we're dealing with, this mass psychosis. The interesting thing about mass psychosis is it has to evolve, and it does rapidly. We've mass psychosised ourselves into dystopian views of the future and otherizing our political opponents from the pandemic of the unvaccinated into the Handmaid's Tale of Project 2025. Let me show you a couple of examples. First, I saw this on X. Listen to this post. This is by someone named Lisa Guerrero. Okay, just for one moment. Lisa Guerrero. Who is Lisa Guerrero? More on that in just a moment. Lisa Guerrero. She posted, "Y'all have lost your damn minds. Biden said he's not stepping down, period. It's not the Gong Show where a celebrity judge, George Clooney, gets to determine a winner. So rally behind an old guy who stands for democracy or lose it to an evil guy who promises to be a dictator on day one." A dictator on day one. So I thought, who is Lisa Guerrero? I clicked through the profile. And this is why this is important, other than just being the ramblings of someone who's given into mass psychosis on X. Lisa Guerrero is an award-winning investigative journalist for Inside Edition. Inside Edition. Again, this is what we are led to believe is the path to the mainstream. This is what is passed off on us in syndication while we're sitting down for dinner before the evening news. And at least stuff like this is somebody who hit my ex. This is Milwaukee Tourism Commissioner. Also calls himself Tony Danza 1256. And I'm only sharing this with you as an illustration of the mass psychosis that's being sold and bought out there in America. On Monday, we did a show with Kevin Roberts of Heritage Foundation, the president of Heritage Foundation, one of the authors of Project 2025. Patriot Takes, which is interestingly a lefty account, complete with an American flag, says Trump claims he doesn't know who is behind Project 2025. Here's Project 2025 founder Kevin Roberts calling Trump a personal friend, and it's a link and video to the Will Cain Show. Well, Milwaukee Tourism Commissioner Tony Danza said the following: Kevin Roberts pinned Project 2025, the literal fall of our democracy, and you give him a platform? I liked you better when you talked about sports. You sold your soul for what? More money? So Milwaukee Tourism Commissioner maybe have listened to me when I was on ESPN. And I would ask him if I could have an interaction. What do you know of Project 2025? Did you watch that episode of The Will Cain Show? Did you learn about Project 2025? Or have you bought into this mass psychosis that it's the end of America, that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy? Because if you've given in to that, if you now believe, if you are engulfed in that mass psychosis, I might suggest you take a look around at who's leading you toward the cliff. What do the actual lemmings at the front of the herd believe? This is CNN. Ezra Klein reported at New York Times, and I'm going to read the top quote from top Democrats. People are weighing things like, it would be unpleasant for me personally to come out against the president as an elected official of the Democratic Party, but I can live with Donald Trump winning. Really, by the way, said Tim Miller in response to Ezra Klein. Democrats have said they can live with Donald Trump winning. And this Democratic source said, I've had top Democrats say to me basically something like, I don't know why these Democrats think Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. The reason the way I'm acting the way I am is because I don't think that. So the interesting thing about this mass psychosis is the lemming herd is headed for the cliff. But in this situation, the top lemmings are veering off to the left and the right while they lead the public over the cliff of mass psychosis. They're running from Joe Biden. Will they run to Kamala Harris? Let's get into the future for Kamala Harris and the 25th Amendment with Congressman Chip Roy in story number 2. He is a congressman from Texas. He is Chip Roy, and he's a friend of the Will Cain Show. What's up, Congressman?
How are you doing, Will?
I'm good. So I want to get into a couple of different issues with you, but you were someone who was advocating pretty openly out there, and you made some very impassioned speeches on the House floor about the SAVE Act, ensuring that American citizens are those that participate in American democracy. Interestingly, many of your colleagues on the left voted, most, in fact, I think all but a few, voted against that idea. And I wanted to share with you before you and I get started the words of one of your colleagues. This is Summer Lee, Democratic congressman on the floor of the House.
It is under attack right now, right here with this very bill. Republicans want to throw up barriers because when people vote, they lose. Let me be clear. They don't want you to vote. They don't want to hear black voices, brown voices, LGBTQIA voices, young voices. Our fundamental access to our democracy is being politicized. And this xenophobic attack that we're debating today will make it harder for Americans to vote. My Republican colleagues will claim that requiring IDs is a small ask, but nearly 30 million people lack a valid driver's license, and about 15 to 18 million adults don't have access to documents proving their birth or citizenship. Americans don't need more obstacles. It's already hard enough.
Americans don't need more obstacles, Congressman, like proving their citizenship of the USA.
Well, I think it's interesting because I don't think our Democratic colleagues can win elections if they don't have non-citizens voting. That's what they're actually afraid of. The fact is, what we put forward in this legislation is what everybody in America wants. It's certainly what Texans that I represent want, which is that only American citizens vote in American elections. And we took great pains. I'm a lawyer. As you know, I was a U.S. attorney up in Sherman, Texas. We took great pains to ensure that this legislation would survive Supreme Court scrutiny on ensuring that we're not going to have any kind of real barriers or burdens on the right of any American citizen to vote. We're not disenfranchising anyone. We allow for a number of different options. Yes, passports. Yes, military IDs that have citizenship in it. Yes, real IDs where states have adopted citizenship. Those are singular documents you can present. But if you don't have those, and her numbers might be right, 60% or what. If you don't have those, you take your driver's license and a copy of your birth certificate. Most people can do that readily and easily. And if you don't have that, we have provisions to allow for states to be able to come up with other mechanisms, check against federal databases, find other ways. The key part being that those government officials will have to sign an affidavit that they have checked for citizenship. This is common sense. And I can tell you this. When I drive past the 400,000 tombstones in Arlington National Cemetery, when I leave here in a few minutes, and I drive across the Potomac River, I can tell you all of those folks who gave the last full measure of devotion or who were willing to, I think they would say, you know what? Why don't you take an extra couple of minutes to go prove your citizenship to make sure we preserve the integrity of our elections? I think we owe that to them.
So, Congressman, there's common sense and there's hyperbole. So I think you're exactly right. This bill is common sense that passes the muster, the smell test of your average, not just Texan, but your average American. Like those videos that are popular on Twitter, just hit the streets of Broadway in Nashville. Hit any street in America you want. Stick a camera and a microphone in front of anyone's face and say, hey, should people who are not citizens of America vote in American elections? And I think you're going to get the appropriate response. You're going to get common sense. Now, her hyperbolic characterization of your position is that you don't want black and brown voices. You want to make it harder for black and brown voices to vote. Do you think it would be hyperbolic for me to then describe her position, and I think you've already led us in this direction, as you want non-citizens to vote in order for yourself to win elections? Are we being partisan in turn, hyperbolic in turn, or are we reading accurately into her motivations, into the motivations of Democrats in opposing keeping it so only American citizens vote in our elections?
Well, Democrats have basically said publicly that they want to encourage non-citizens, illegals to vote. We have the District of Columbia, we have San Francisco, Oakland, New York, who are actively seeking to register non-citizens in state and local elections. So they basically already said that's what they want to do. Meanwhile, I'm tired of all this race baiting. I'm tired of all this use of the race card all the time when it is they who want to discriminate based on race. It is they who want to divvy us up by race. They failed at class warfare. Now they use race to try to divide Americans instead of uniting us. Go tell Byron Donalds, who voted for this, that he wants to prevent black people from voting. Go tell Burgess Owens, who voted for this, that he wants to stop black people from voting. Go tell your own Democrat members of Congress, Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez from Texas, from South Texas, both of them Hispanic Americans, that they want to prevent Hispanic citizens from voting. It's garbage. The Republican Party represents the entirety of this great country. We want everybody to be able to participate, but it is Democrats who want to play the race card so that they can retain political power. That's what this is all about: political power. And
I know
what their American sovereignty
response is. So first of all, I know what their response is to Byron Donalds or Burgess Owens or Henry Cuellar. I mean, it's to double down on race. They would say, Byron, this is what they would say. They say it out loud. They'd say Brian is a grifter. He's a token. He's an Uncle Tom. They would say that he is a convenient tool for white supremacists to use to advance their agenda. And they'd say the same thing about Cuellar or any other Latino. My colleague, Rachel Campos-Dovey, I didn't know this, so said she gets called a coconut, brown on the outside and white on the inside. So they double down on race, even though you just pointed out half a dozen individuals who, regardless of race, understand the very simple proposition: American citizens vote in elections in America.
No, that's exactly right. But look, again, you pointed out a minute ago, I think the polls I've seen have ranged from 81 to 87% of Americans support this. Overwhelming numbers. And Karl Rove had one of his little whiteboards on Fox about an hour ago showing all the independents, all of the Democrats who support this. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on the wrong side of history. They're on the wrong side of America. They want to play the race card when most Americans are tired of it. I think a new day is dawning. I think President Trump is appealing to broader swaths of people because, frankly, he's no nonsense. He doesn't want to discriminate against anybody. He's going to pick the best person for the job. He's demonstrated that repeatedly in his own cabinet. I don't think Ben Carson thinks that we're playing, games with race and trying to prevent black Americans from voting. The fact is, we've got the upper hand because we're standing up for hardworking Americans against inflation, against open borders. I mean, look, tell Laken Riley's parents that what we're doing is wrong, right? Tell the people who have been getting hurt because of this ridiculous administration's abuse of our borders, allowing foreign nationals to pour into our country, and now they want to let those individuals vote. That's ridiculous, and the American people know it. And I'm not afraid to stand on that rock. And I'm going to call them out when they're the ones using the race card, not us.
I'm looking through viewer comments as we're talking, Congressman. There has been conversation, as there is in our comments thread currently, but there has been conversation appropriately, in my estimation, about the invocation of the 25th Amendment. I know that's something that you have pushed forward on. Tell me about that. You think Joe Biden is what, a national security risk to the United States of America, and this is an appropriate use of the 25th Amendment?
Yeah, first of all, for everybody viewing, remember, Congress can't do anything here, okay? The Vice President of the United States alone can trigger pulling the cabinet together, and if a majority of the cabinet agrees with the Vice President to invoke the 25th Amendment, they can do that based on the inability of the President to carry out the powers and duties of the office. That's the way it reads. If the President pushes back and says, no, I'm good, then the Vice President of the cabinet can then again act and say, no, you're not good. Then it goes to Congress for approval. The reason I filed a resolution that Friday morning after the debate was because what all of us had known was very clear, that the president is not all there, that he has not been in the mental state to carry out the powers and the duties of the office. It was then finally readily obvious for everybody in America. The media was flipping on the president. Everybody was starting to acknowledge the truth we've known, a truth that Jill Biden, Kamala Harris herself, the White House chief of staff, all of the people around the president, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries have been covering up. So I filed that resolution, and all that does is call on the vice president to invoke the 25th Amendment, because I believe we have a duty to say, wait a minute, you can't have your cake and eat it too. They're trying to figure out how to save an election. They refuse to stand up for America. They want to stand up for political power yet again. So now they're worried about Donald Trump winning. So now they want to try to say that they need to replace the candidate. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. Either he's the president or he's not. I don't believe that he has the ability to carry out the duties of the office. So I filed the resolution. I actually think this is actually beneficial for President Trump because I think this is making very clear to the American people that he can't do it and that Kamala Harris can't really invoke the 25th Amendment because she's complicit. She's a part of the cover-up.
Right. I've been on that, beating that drum, Congressman. This is a massive scandal that threatens the national security of the United States of America, and everyone participating in this cover-up needs to be held accountable. And you rattled off a list of names that include the Democratic leadership. It's going to include the family members of Joe Biden, but it most certainly includes the person who stands to benefit from either the invocation of the 25th Amendment or the movements of the Democratic Party, the Vice President of the United States. We need accountability of all of these members of one of the biggest scandals of the last half century in America. Here are some comments, Congressman. Bryce Cooley says Chip Roy looks cool. He looks like he could play a Confederate general in the Civil War. I don't know if that's a backhanded compliment or if that is something that is a genuine fan that makes you choke on your Diet Coke. Brandon on YouTube says, I voted Biden the first time. Now I'm voting Trump, which is pretty fascinating, Congressman, because I didn't know there's people left like that in America who are actually swinging between these two individuals. And then Virtuoso says, Project 2025 is the biggest boogeyman I've ever seen. LMAO. I spent the beginning of our show today talking about Project 2025 being the latest attempt at a mass psychosis to move the American people from the pandemic of the unvaccinated to a threat to democracy to Russia's interference in our elections. The latest boogeyman is Project 2025 to scare you into voting against Donald Trump.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I've got a lot of friends who are very, very involved in the Trump administration, very close and good friends with former President Trump and the people that work in the administration and people who are actually in the administration who are all working on this project. But frankly, I'm sitting here in Washington, have friends in it. I've seen some of the products from it. It's an ongoing conversation. There's nothing magical. This is just the hard work of putting together plans for governing and for coming in and doing the work that a president will need to do, issuing executive orders, taking the actions they need to take to undo the damage of a lawless, tyrannical Biden regime. Let's be very clear. This administration, in addition to a scandal covering up the incompetency of a president, they've had a Manchurian candidate, a Manchurian president. They have had a cadre of people around them advancing a radical, progressive Democrat agenda that this administration has been foisting on the American people unconstitutionally and tyrannically, from the student loan fiasco and ignoring the Supreme Court, to all that they've been doing with open borders, endangering the American people, lying about all manners of policies in addition to the mental state of the president. You now need a president, President Trump, to come in and undo that damage. Project 25 is about making sure we marshal our ability and forces in the executive branch and legislative branch to undo that damage and carry this country forward. Nothing more, nothing less. And these are good Americans who are working on it.
I want to let Congressman Chip Roy get back to the duties of representing his district in the great state of Texas there in Washington, D.C., at the House of the United States Congress. But I want to end here, if we could, Congressman. We're really close. Like, we're a week away from an official announcement, and we're just probably days away from leaks into who will be the vice presidential candidate to accompany Donald Trump on this ticket. This morning, I was reading that it might be down to two. It might be down to Senator Marco Rubio of Florida and Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. That would notably be leaving out, I think, the one other person who's been considered on the short list, which is former North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. What do you think? I would ask you, what is your prediction? I don't want to put you on the spot. I would ask you, who do you support? I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, so I'm just going to ask you a little more broadly. What do you think?
Well, again, it's always bad to be in the prediction business. Look, all of those people are strong Americans who've done a lot of good things for their country. I do not believe that it'll be the North Dakota governor. I think he's a little out of step on some of the globalism issues and some other things where I've had some disagreements, but a good, faithful public servant. Marco Rubio is a friend, and I think he's done a lot of really great work on focusing on families and making sure that we're focusing on hardworking American families. And look, I think J.D. Vance brings a lot with respect to Pennsylvania, a lot of understanding of the populist direction of the country. He's a good man and a good friend. But I wouldn't leave out some other members, people like Ben Carson. Ben Carson is a good man. He's a good friend, Trump loyalist, served faithfully, also a brain surgeon, literally. I think there are some other folks out there that, might surprise some people. Whenever I see the media saying it's down to these three, I usually kind of believe it might be someone who's not in that 3, but we'll see what happens.
That's like a sports fan saying when a coach gets a vote of confidence, you can be assured he's going to be fired. You just whatever we predict is down to, you figure, well, it's got to be wrong. It's got to be something else. Glad to have earned your respect, Congressman Roy, as a card-carrying member of the media. Whatever I say, take the opposite, Congressman.
No.
Yeah, I'd love to. You were on Fox and Friends weekend. Oh, I love having you on. You were on Fox Friends weekend. You told me you were at the Lukenbach 4th of July picnic. Awesome. I would love to come down. You told me it's in your district, so I will meet you in Lukenbach sometime soon, Congressman Chip Roy.
Well, I'm going back on July 20th for William Beckman, who's one of the great up-and-coming country stars down out of South Texas. He's from Del Rio.
I know.
If you're not a fan, go look him up. William Beckman, he's a good man. I saw Pat Green and Corey Morrow last week, but William Beckman will be fun in a week and a half.
We got to get a Congressman Chip Roy top 5. I mean, as you talk about young guys, let me just throw one out there and see if you know him. You like Wyatt Flores?
Oh, Wyatt Flores is great. Now, every once in a while, you got to edit 1 or 2 of his songs if you got kids in the car. But he's really good. My son, who's 14 years old, is a big fan. He's also a really good church-going kid. So whenever we get one of those songs, he'll kind of bleep it and then come out. But no, Wyatt's great, really talented.
Yeah, I really like Wyatt Flores. I didn't know you had such good musical taste. All right, the bro date is on with Congressman Chip Roy. Thanks, Congressman. Great to have you on the Will Cain Show.
Take care, Will.
All right. Wow, the Congressman. Talking about William Beckman and Wyatt Flores. A whole new respect. This is Texas country. If you're out there listening to Morgan Wallen, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to get a little grittier, a little more red dirt, just listen to the names coming from the Congressman. You know, increasingly, I think as Nate Silver said, this election is going to be less about Donald Trump. For the first time in a decade, it's not going to be a referendum on Donald Trump. One issue has overrode how people feel about Donald Trump, and that is Joe Biden's senility. It has risen to the top of referendums. It's risen to the top of motivating issues. And because of that, I am increasingly of the belief that if Democrats set aside that issue, it makes it harder for Republicans. In other words, whether via the 25th Amendment, as just illustrated or laid out by Congressman Chip Roy, or just the machinations of the Democratic Party, I'm beginning to believe that they have a better chance, despite the betting market and despite current polling, they have a better chance to win with Kamala Harris. Coming up, your reaction, viewer interaction, plus the question of what are my bottom 5 state flags, coming up on the Will Cain Show.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday. Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you.
Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Saturday on FS1, the battle atop the AL East rages on as 2 of the top teams in baseball collide.
Judge again, it is gone!
Aaron Judge is at it again. Now he looks to continue his historic tear as he powers the pinstripes against Phenom Gunnar Henderson and the Orioles.
Oh my goodness!
Coverage begins Saturday at 3 Eastern on FS1.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
That heat's going to be out there for one more day.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com.
Gave you my top 5 flags, state flags in the U.S. One of you, though, asks, yeah, Will, but what are your bottom 5 state flags? It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, And always on demand by hitting subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. We were pleased just now to be joined by Congressman Chip Roy. So we'd love now to, as we say goodbye to the Congressman, bring you in, like Mia Pulchritudinous. I can do it. I'm going to try one more time. Mia Pulchritudinous. Oh, that's what it is. All of a sudden I felt insecure, though, halfway through. Pulchritudinous. Hello from England. Hello, Mia. Congratulations on making the finals of Euro 2024. 2 days, Dan, Young Establishment James, Tim Foyle, Pat. What are the viewers saying? What are they asking? What are they dropping in today here on the Will Cain Show?
So this one was kind of funny. It's about your shirt. Was that yesterday?
Huh. Yeah.
You couldn't wear a shirt covered in peaches because of the emoji, which is pretty funny.
Clay Bernellis on YouTube. Yesterday I had a Texas shirt on, had a little Texas emojis covered up, and we had Joey Jones, native of Georgia, and I said, I don't even know what a Georgia version of this would be. Peaches? Yeah, okay, Clay. I mean, peaches aren't just booties. I mean, emoji world has taken over. We can't even think of peaches without thinking of a rear end.
Or eggplants. Can't have a shirt of eggplants, I'll tell you that right now. Even if you love eggplants so much, just can't do it.
Well, that one I understand, because one wouldn't have a shirt with eggplants on it if they were not making a statement about eggplants.
What about Italian mothers?
No, Patrick. You find me one picture of an Italian mother wearing an eggplant shirt unironically, and I will stand corrected. One. I give you the entire internet. I give you all of the internet. I want you to find one person, one mom in New Jersey wearing an eggplant shirt unironically. You have your homework, Patrick. Get to it. I give you the internet.
Okay.
All right, this came through, I saw on the email. I don't have a name, so if you guys know who sent this in, I want to give this guy a shout-out when I'm done reading it. Hey, Will, been a huge fan since you were Russillo's sidekick. Little bit of a hurtful compliment. And completely outshone him. Oh, that sentence was a roller coaster. Hey, Will, been a huge fan since you were Russillo's sidekick and completely outshone him. I would never outshine Ryan. You can't, one would argue. You can't outshine Ryan. Your objectivity and rationality is refreshing. Just a suggestion. Do a bottom 5 in addition to every top 10 ranking you put out. Wondering where you'd put the worst state flags. I think this list is inarguable, but would love to hear your opinion. So this fine fella says his bottom 5 flags would go as follows. 46, West Virginia. 47, Nevada. 48, Ohio. 49, Delaware. And 50, New Jersey. So here's what I'd say to our fine friend who's been listening to us since the Russillo show days. This was hard. I tried. What's his name?
Matt Hula.
Matt Hula. I would say this was really hard. I tried to come up with a bottom 5. And here's why it was so hard. There are so many bad ones in the same range of bad. Like, they're very similar bad. And it made me create 2 categories and realize something. I set out a standard yesterday, one that was echoed by Tinfoil Pat in our note. He doesn't like, nor do I like, when states put their names on the flag, right? Kansas, Oklahoma, when they're too literal. But I realized something. None of those states made my bottom 5. Like Oregon, Kansas, Wisconsin, Montana, Oklahoma, all have their name on the flag. But there was something as I continued to look at that version of the flag that felt almost like it would be a cool-looking T-shirt, like it was self-aware in its lack of creativity. And I began to appreciate it more, and it was more appealing. Then the category of state flags that were simply crests, and I couldn't tell, nor you could tell if we put them up on the screen, what state they were from. So what I'm getting at is these kinds of states. And I'm not going to rank the bottom 5 because, truthfully, there's about 5 to 10 of them that are all like this. Connecticut, Nebraska, New York, Vermont, Pennsylvania, a lot of Northeast, but not exclusively Northeast. And I would say this. You can't, New Jersey, which I almost give New Jersey extra credit because their background is beige, and that's so bad and bold that it becomes good.
Says a lot about that state.
If I can't put your flag up on the screen and know where that's from, that's when it gets you in the bottom 5, for sure. Now, one could argue, somebody could be listening going like, well, I know my state's crest. And yeah, those crests are unique to each state, but no one else does. Like, no one knows what's going on in those crests.
No, it's true. Like I said, I'm from Connecticut, and ours is so boring. It's just blue with the crest in the middle. Like, that's the laziest flag I've ever seen. Do better, guys.
And there's like 10 states like that. So if you're in that category, in my mind, you're in the bottom 5. Yeah. All 10 of you.
It's true. We talked about this at home. My fiance had no idea about any flags. She's like, does anyone know of any flags, really? And we started talking about tattoos for your state flags. And tattoos of the outline of your state. If you were a tattoo person, would you get a tattoo of the outline of your state? Or do you think that's lame?
If I were a tattoo person?
Yes. Like, would you get an outline of Texas?
If I were a if I were a tattoo person, I would work Texas in to some motif. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I'd just have like a tracing of Texas.
Right.
But I would have something Texas going on in my arm sleeve.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I do. I like it.
Are you
what?
Are you an arm sleeve guy? 2-a-days?
Yeah, I have a lot. I have half sleeves on both my arms.
Why'd you stop up at the biceps?
Because my mom just would get real mad. So, but I'm an adult, so I could do what I want. So I might finish it. We'll see. Because you would see it like right here.
So what themes did you work in?
Well, so I have old school traditional tattoos, which are like the thick lines, like the bird, the eagle, rose, nurse from no man's land kind of thing. That style, like the old school tattoos.
So when you go in to get a tattoo and you've got this kind of like motif, right? You've got a collage. You've got a graffiti wall of images on your arm. How do you select what images you want? Like if I were doing it and then I said, well, I put a Christian cross, I put the state of Texas, I put some kind of Americana on there. These would all be things that are important to me. But it sounds like, did you like look at the wall and there were certain designs and there was one that said old school and you said, I'll take the old school package?
Well, no, I went to a specific artist, shout out Darius, and that's his style that he does. And he has a flash book of things that he makes. If I wanted something specific, he could draw it up how I wanted it. Like if I wanted the state flag of Connecticut, he could do it, but in that style, which I would never do. But it'd be kind of funny.
You should get the crest of Connecticut across your back.
Hell yeah.
What about just on my neck?
And people wouldn't know what it was.
Like right here.
They wouldn't know what it was. It would just kind of be badass.
Yeah, be like,
because in the end, it's just like a crest. And I guarantee someone would say it's white supremacist because it's like old looking and crest, and you'd be like, it's just Connecticut, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Greenwich.
Yeah. I'm from Westport, man.
All right, this is from Brian Hicks. I was a musician on the Las Vegas Strip for 20 plus years. One night on a gig at Caesars, I needed a urinal. While standing there, the stall on my left opened up, and some figure, I couldn't tell at the time, walked up. I nonchalantly glanced and didn't see anyone until I looked down, and it was Peter Dinklage. I think I was more uncomfortable afterwards because I was excited to pee next to him. Awkward.
Do we know
Go
what
Cowboys,
type of watch
Brian
he
Hicks.
was wearing?
That would be, you'd have to have good vision to see Peter Dinklage's watch. But he said Peter Dinklage came out of the stall, right? Did he say Peter Dinklage came out of the stall?
No, urinal right next to him.
Yeah, urinal right next to him. Yep.
All right. Brian, I love that you threw in a Go Cowboys, but I am tapping my nose and calling smell test on this. I don't think Peter Dinklage reaches a urinal.
That's the low ones, though. They have the low ones. We have one here at work.
So he was standing next. So he's standing next to the kiddie urinal?
Yeah, could have been.
I feel like that detail would have made the story. Is that code compliant? Do you have to have one that goes to the floor?
I believe so.
I don't think so.
I've only seen bathrooms
Really?
that have one. I'm 90% sure.
So in Florida,
I don't.
We do have bathrooms where it's just shorter. We don't go all the way to the floor in some of them. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a New York thing. They all go to the floor.
There's one bar in New Jersey.
No, wait a minute. So you guys right now, if you walk into the 15th floor bathroom, there's one lowrider?
Yeah.
There's one lower than the others?
Yes.
My office is on 21. I can't picture that. I think if you go into that, I don't think there's one lower. And I think it's a 4.
It is a
by the way,
4.
in 21, I think there's 4. It's a 4, which is really awkward. Why'd they do that?
Shows a dude probably didn't design the bathrooms.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to say it.
4 means only 2 guys can be up there at once. And if you go 5 urinals, you can get 3 guys up there at once.
Yet they have like 5 stalls.
I can't picture a lowrider up on 21. I can't picture that's required.
Well,
I never thought about it. The code says you have to have a lowrider. By the way, who are we protecting with that code?
Short men.
Handicapable?
people?
I mean, wonder if you
Men
know.
under 5'6".
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'm not trying to.
Really tall
I'm
dudes.
serious. Like when they wrote that code, who did they have in mind?
Could that? We're getting down a weird.
I'm serious.
Like, is it wheelchair accessible, or do you have to go to a stall?
No. Have you ever seen a wheelchair guy
I don't know.
at the low riding urinal?
I'm not in every bathroom with every urinal. I don't know. I've never seen.
Until this Peter Dinklage story, I've never even considered that it's anything but for kids. And now I realize, there are other people that would benefit from the lowrider. I'm just trying to figure out, did we write an entire code around Peter Dinklage?
Yes.
That's crazy. That's wild.
Margaret Bingham on the chat room has great choice of conversation, lads. Talking about urinals.
Thank you, Margaret. With such the feedback on who wins a golf match between Donald Trump and Jesse Waters, we thought we might as well take it up a notch and go for an Emmy with the exploration of urinals. All right, you got anything else for us from the viewing contingent today, two-a-days?
That's all we had, and then we just had the ones about the golf, and they liked our segment talking about it. And did you think more about the golf conversation? Who you think could beat Trump? You think it's Brett Baer?
Not a moment. Didn't give it a moment's thought after the show was over.
Too busy watching England.
Jace Loves Strength on YouTube says regarding the presidential choices, both choices suck. They also sucked in 2016, 12, 8, 04. I've yet to been able to vote in a presidential election where I actually liked either choice. All right. On one hand, Jace, maybe. On the other hand, you might be like two-a-days. You might be a garage band guy, and it's just like there's no you're self-identifying as anti whatever is something everybody else is into. I don't think presidential candidates are like Cold Stone Creamery. You don't get to go in and make it just to your liking. They are what they are, and you take your favorite between a choice of two. This stuff is prefix. It's not customizable. All right. That's going to do it for us today here on the Will Cain Show. Fun, good conversation with Congressman Chip Roy. Had a big week here. Go subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube, and we will see you again next time.